Once upon a time, and really, once upon a time, there was a beautiful country of green and rolling hills and huge forests, with wonderful grain fields, wheat and rye, and there was a king, of course, in this country. He lived in a castle and he was quite insignificant, as all kings are. And as far as I'm told, he ate celery all day and did nothing much else but sleep. At that time, several people lived in this country which were very special. One was an old fisherman who went out to fish mackerel each day in his small boat, and when he returned, he always found Misoshiro. Misoshiro was a black tomcat who had his name from a Japanese man who used to live as a guest in this country, and also he used to eat a lot of rice. And one day it happened that he stuffed a huge rice ball in his mouth and it got stuck in his throat and he suffocated, and Misoshiro found his way to the old fisherman, who was a kind man, took him in and gave him mackerel tails to eat each day. The fisherman was a huge man, but bent over with his age now. His legs appeared a little bit too short for him from being on the boat most of the day. He had the gait of a sailor, and his face was all wrinkled and cracked by the sun and the salt. One day it happened that when the fisherman went out on this boat, after several hours of rowing and sailing and trying to catch fish, there was this dragon bobbing up and down on a small wave, which appeared to belong to him. He was very weak and he couldn't spit fire anymore, and to be truthful, he was more brown than green, as dragons usually are seen. He looked quite miserable, and he was about as big as a dolphin, and our fisherman said to himself, well, I can't leave him here, I'll take him home and try to give him some shelter so he can recover and be a real dragon again. And it would be nice to have a dragon at home, because it is so hard to keep the fire going. This day he didn't catch one mackerel, and reaching the shore, he took the dragon on his shoulders and carried him inside and gave him some mackerel tails to eat, which he still had left over. The dragon slept and slept and slept. As far as we remember, he slept for about 40 days, off and on, waking up only to eat some mackerel tails. And the old man went fishing each day, brought home mackerels, and the tomcat and the dragon ate mackerels. And the old man ate mackerel. There was nothing else. His garden was all overgrown. He was too busy with the fishing. After about these 40 days, it happened that about 100 crows fell dead out of the sky, and that some of the stones in the garden went walking and never returned, and that the forest near the house cried and made sounds like a sawmill. And when the storm came, and the storm was so immense that it blew out all the fires, that it felled trees and Even the rooftops were flying all over. And it lasted, and it lasted, and it lasted for 3 months. From around the end of November that year, once upon a time, until the next year, in February or March, we don't know. The little dragon had got quite used to the life with the fisherman and the tomcat, Misoshiro. He used to cuddle under the bed of the fisherman and sleep together with Misoshiro. It kept both of them warm. Now in the storm, he was quite useful. He started the fire to go again each day, and each hour sometimes when the wind had blown it out again, and we didn't freeze to death, and we still had some pickles and salted mackerels to eat, so we survived, and it was good. Then one day, when the storm had stopped, all the moaning, all the rumbling, and the groaning, and the whistling, there was silence all of a sudden, and we went outside, and all was green and water everywhere. And the birds started to come from wherever they had hidden, and we started to sing, and it was like a big feast. And we just stood there in wonder, and I was so happy to be alive. More is not necessary. From there on, we lived in peace for many years, until one day we had a visitor, one of the king's servants who had run away to look for more salary. And we gave him to drink and some mackerel, and he told them a story about a very, very small man, a tiny man, living thousands of meters under the sea, all alone and all happy, and making up songs for the mermaids to sing. And they made their hearts filled with longing for this music. And the fisherman said, I want to find this man. I have to go out in my boat. I have to find this little man, and I have to find the mermaid singing. He was very old then, and quite weak, and filled with desire. So he took his little boat out, and he started to row, and when he set sail, and when he didn't return, he was never seen anymore. But somebody said, once upon a time, that he heard the mermaids singing, and then he just sunk down absolutely happily. Well, this would have been a good end to the story, and then with the dragon and the Omisoshiro cat, they realized that he will never come back again, and we didn't know what to do, but we just went on with our daily business, sitting at the shore, watching the waves and the sea, and we tried to find something to eat here and there, and we noticed that we can do it much better together. And in the end, we got married by a parrot who also had found his way from far abroad to their shelter and lived ever happily thereafter. And nobody knows, maybe they still are alive and well.